Welcome to the From the Bench podcast presented by Projectile Warehouse. I'm your host, Taylor Weezy. My guest this episode is Stuart Pethybridge, a very accomplished fly and F-class shooter from WA. I reached out to Stuart after seeing photos online of his national record-setting 500-metre fly shoot, and he was kind enough to jump on and tell me how he made it happen. If you don't know what fly shooting is, that's okay. Neither did I really before chatting to Stuart, so I hope you enjoy the episode and a different perspective on shooting and reloading. Hey Stuart, it's Taylor Weezy here. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, good, dude. Mate, thanks so much for agreeing to take a call today. I really appreciate it.
No dramas at all.
That's awesome, man. Hey, so yeah, I don't know too much about you. I obviously just saw that you shot, that absolute record-breaking score with the fly shoot, and I was like, I need to get in contact with this guy. I need to know what he's doing, how he does it, and everything about his reloading. So, man, give me a brief rundown on like who you are, how long you've been shooting, what disciplines you shoot, and just fill me in.
Right, I'll try and do that. I suppose I started shooting fly about 8-9 years ago now.
Yep.
Just started out of Perth at one of the clubs out here, Perth Field Rifle.
Yeah.
And it's only got a 400-metre range. I sort of used to, because I'm off a farm originally, so I come into the city because of work, and I just wanted to shoot guns again because I was getting bored, and started down there just shooting rimfire again, and then I saw they did bench rest fly shoot at 400, so I dragged out the old 243 Weatherby Vanguard and sort of went from there. So
that's all. And how long ago was that?
Oh, it was about 8-9 years ago.
Yeah, and so, like the rest of us, you've ended up spiraling into just it's become your complete obsession.
Pretty much, yeah. It started off, I modified the old Weatherby Vanguard for everything I possibly could. The only thing that was still stock on it was the action. I changed everything else. Even went to 6BR barrel on it after 243.
Yep.
And probably about 5-6 years ago, I did my first nationals, went over to Canberra, just for the experience, really, with a few blokes from WA because we'd never done it before. And the bug really bit then. I basically went out and ordered a custom rifle straight away.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back since then. So.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So how often are you shooting? Like, I haven't done any fly shooting. Are they running these, like, really regularly? How often are you out doing it?
Depends what state it's in. I know South Australia there has got a club there that's doing it, and they've actually got their state titles in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
But for us in Perth here, we actually shoot every fortnight. So we've got an advantage over most of the other states. Most of the other guys shoot about once a month. We every fortnight we're down to the club and we just have club shoots and got a couple of registered shoots per year, which we can go for records and everything else like that. So,
yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone listening that doesn't know, and also like myself, because I have no idea, what are the rules? What's the rule set for fly shooting? Give me a rundown on how it works.
Right. Generally, for club shoots, they're pretty relaxed with a lot of the rules. But when it comes to a registered shoot, there's actually three classes. You've got light gun, so it's basically your rifle that weighs under 17 pound or 7.711 kilos. You can have a bipod attached to a light gun, but that's got to be included in the weight. Then you've got heavy gun, which is over 17 pounds, which basically you have to manually lift it on and off the bench. So you can't have any help doing that. So there is some big heavy guns out there.
Yeah.
And then you've also got 200-yard rimfire. So,
yeah, nice.
Which is great fun. Getting a little bullet blown around on the wind. It's great. But yeah, same thing. You can have bipods in the rimfire, but the whole weight of the gun has to be under that 17 pounds or 7.711 kilos.
Yeah, right. Well, I think most of us PRS guys we'd be falling into the heavy gun category because we load the guns up with that much weight to sort of, manage recoil and things like that. But you're shooting off of like F-class style front rests. I saw. Is that like is your rest? Is there rule sets around what you're allowed to use as a front and a rear rest?
There are rules in light gun. In heavy gun, there are rules around heavy gun too, but in heavy gun you can use up to a 4 or 5 inch fore end if you like.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be attached, so like a sled type system.
Yep.
And then you can't have like adjusters on your rear bag as such to move it around. It's actually got to be sitting on like the bench, or you can have little spaces underneath to lift up the bag at the rear.
Yep.
But you can't have little adjusters on it to change angles or anything like that.
So it has to be driven with the front of the rifle.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they're pretty much in a nutshell. So, F-class style bench rest, front rest bags. So, yeah.
And then I'm assuming, like any of these shooting sports, especially for you guys having to hit such a small target and center it up, like wind reading is probably where the matches are won and lost. Am I wrong?
Yes, it can be indeed. So basically, you can set up flags downrange. So like myself and a few others, probably from about 200 metres on, I have about 3 or 4 flags I can actually see in my scope as I'm looking down at the target at the other end. Closer than that, I'll stick them off to the side a little bit so you can see them with your other eye as you're looking down the scope. So you can.
That's cool. How long do you have to complete your course of fire? And do you get sighters or what's that?
Yep. So basically, you'll have a 10-minute warmer target at the start of a match. So you can have unlimited ammo down at that. Now you've got your target at the end, but underneath that target, you've actually got a metal splash plate, which is where you put your sighters onto. When it actually gets into the shooting of a target, you only get 3 rounds for your sighter plate underneath and only 5 rounds into your target. Now, you don't have to use all your sighters, and you can use your sighters whenever you want, but you can only put those 5 rounds into your target.
Right.
Any more than that, you'll lose your high score or something like that.
So you could potentially start off with a round onto the sighter, onto the splash plate, and if you're happy with how it's looking, fire away. And then if you think that the wind may have picked up or dropped off, you can then have another 1 or 2 down on that splash plate before you've finished your 5 shots at the fly.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, nice. How often does that happen? Is it pretty regular to play it that way, or more often than not, do you have your all 3 sighters and then just run it fast and try and get your five in that fly?
It depends on the conditions. Like sometimes, I might put 1 down and it might hit exactly where I want, and I can put the next 5 down in a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You just get used to doing it quickly after a while, because I run a dual port action, so I can load from the left as I right bolt, right eject. So, but if the conditions change, you can either wait for the conditions to come back. You get 7 minutes on that target to have your round. So, sometimes I've waited 6.5 minutes for the wind to come back, and it hasn't. So you've got a couple of sighters left over. You can punch those down, and then you just got to go for it at the end. But if it changes halfway through, you can stop, use another sighter or 2, and then back up to your target. Yeah,
that's so cool. And throughout the course of a club match or a national level match, how many times are you shooting for score throughout the day? Is it just the one time, or do you do it multiple times throughout the day?
Yeah, so you have 5 targets. You have a scoring targets.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it depends on how many details you get of people. Like at the Nationals the other year, we had 4 details of, I think it was nearly 30 people each in each detail. So, we would shoot one, your 7 minutes for that round, and then you'd sit around and wait till it was your turn again for your detail to come back up, and you would do that 5 times throughout the day. So it makes a nice long day.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's so cool, man. It's so interesting, just the level of precision and accuracy you guys are able to maintain at like the distance you're shooting at. So let's talk about this group that got my attention. What did your group that you shot for record, what is that? What did it measure at 500 metres?
So at 500 metres centre to centre, it was 0.579 of an inch.
Yeah, wow.
So just over half an inch.
Man, that is amazing. Like, there's people that would be happy with that out of their rifle at 100 metres.
Yeah, yep. correct.
And are you the only person on record so far in Australia to have landed all 5 of your shots at 500 metres touching that centre fly?
Yes, from what we can gather. We're still trying to find out if it's been done before, but nobody knows about it like in modern times.
Mm-hmm.
It's been running for about 31 years now, so we're sort of been going back to see any of the old blokes if they know of it or anything like that, if it's been done before. But at this stage, it doesn't look like at 500 metres
awesome.
someone hit all 5 on the fly.
That's so good. Had you been close before? Like, had there been days where you were like, oh, I'm going to get this one day? Or did you just have an absolute blinder of a day?
I've been close once before, which is actually my heavy gun national record. I shot a couple of years ago. I got 5 rounds down in .847 of an inch, and I actually scored a 60.02, which I got 2 flies out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, the highest scoring target or for a record at the moment. Pity my one that I shot at a club shoot won't actually count as a national record.
Yeah, right.
Because it has to be shot at a registered shoot to actually be classed as a record. But I still get bragging rights for it, so I'm pretty happy about it.
No worry, yeah, totally, man. And it gives you something to keep chasing too, like to be able to replicate that at a national event would be your next goal, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So we've got a state event this weekend, which is a registered shoot. So all going to well. Hopefully I can get close to that again, but yeah, we'll see how we go.
Will you be running the same gun, same load for this coming weekend as to what you shot that group with?
Yes, I will be. So I've just finished giving it a clean now, and she's all ready to go for the weekend.
That's so good. Give us a bit of a rundown, because I'm super curious as to what you're running components wise and the rifle itself, and then also a little bit about what reloading gear you run.
Righto. I've sort of learnt over the years to cry once, just like with anything that I do, all my hobbies over the years. But at the moment, when I did move from my old Weatherby Vanguard, I actually went out and bought a custom one. So I went for a dual port Stolly Panda Action. So I got that sent over from America. I got a Macmillan F-Class stock, and that's actually glued into the stock, so I can't remove the action at all on that. It's running a 2-ounce dual trigger, and I've got a Krieger heavy varmint 28-inch 1 7.5 twist Krieger barrel on there. I'm also running a Eric Cortina tuner at the end. I think a few of your F-Class and PRS guys will know about Eric Cortina and his tuners.
Yeah, totally. The barrel tuner thing is a pretty hot topic. I've done a podcast on that, and my good mate BJ makes the TMB, the tunable muzzle brake. So yeah, that's a pretty big talking point. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm also running a Nightforce competition scope. So that's a 15 by 55 power. Was it 52? Oh, yep. So basically, when there's no mirage around, I can see my bullet holes on paper at that 500 metres, which is pretty good. But I'm using Lapua brass. Now I'm running a 6BRX, which is an improved version of a 6BR. It's basically the same as a Dasher, so except the Dasher's got a 40-degree shoulder. I'm running the original 6BR shoulder, which is a 30-degree shoulder. So same process, shoulders blowing forward about 100 thou. And, just to give you that bit extra case capacity, with a little bit of extra speed over a 6BR. I'm using Berger 108 grain boat tails, the target ones, and CCI 450 primers. Yep. And I'm actually using 2209 in this barrel. Last 2 barrels I've tried 2209 instead of 2208, which most people use.
That's a really interesting choice, because the common conception would be that 2209 would be too slow for that size of case, right?
Yeah, that's right. So you do get a very, very full case. So generally I'm running 150 free bore on it. So I run a lot of free bore so you can keep that the bullets out of that sort of neck junction, shoulder junction area. Yep. So I keep that forward. And that allows me to get up to around about 36 grains of 2209, which is starting to compress it at that load.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm using 35.1 grains. That's my actual slower node, and I'm running that at 29.45 feet per second.
That's still moving for such a little case, isn't it? That's
yes.
good
Yeah,
speed.
Compare that to when I was running 2208, I was using about 32.5 grains, and I was getting 3,000 feet a second out of that.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah. I actually was running this one a little bit faster. I was up around 29.90, but I changed powder, so I redid my little bit of a quick load test.
Yep.
I've actually picked a smaller node on this new lot of powder.
Mm-hmm.
I was up around that 29.90 with the older stuff.
Yep. And what was the decision to go to attempt to try the 2209 over the 2208, which is what you typically run in something like a BRX or a Dasher?
Yeah, a lot of things. Most of it is from what the guys in the US were using in their Dashers. There's a few blokes out there that were using the 2209, which is H4350. Yep. Now, then a few of the guys over east in their Dashers and 6BRXs were also running the 2209. There wasn't too many people out there doing it. So I'm one of those blokes that like to try things for myself.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying stuff, which is good and bad in some ways. But so I tried it in that, and I haven't looked back in it really. It just comes down, when I get a new barrel, I'll do a bit of testing, and I'll see how it goes. If it's not what I'm looking for, I will try a different powder or a different bullet and see if I can get it to work a bit better. But so far, the last couple of barrels, I've stuck with 2209.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been any difference in barrel life between 2208 and 2209. I just like a fuller case. That's pretty much what it comes to.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, it's always made sense in my head that if you can get that good case feel, you're eliminating that variable of, the air gap in there and the powder lying differently depending how it's sort of stacked up. So it makes sense, like, from I wouldn't say I guess it is a scientific point of view that a good case fill is going to be a consistent burn each time.
Yep. My theory too.
Yeah, and we had this quick chat. I almost don't know if I want to talk about this on the podcast because it's like trying to get bullets at the moment in Australia is hectic. Q Store just did a drop the other day, and I think the website crashed like 1 million times throughout the day, and the phone lines were blocked. So it's pretty crazy. But we were had a quick chat about those 108s, which don't get much of a look in sometimes in the 6mm. People are tempted to go the 105 or the 109 hybrids or the VLDs, but the 108 boat tails seem to be a very consistent projectile, although you're giving up a little bit of BC. Is that the bullet that you've run in that barrel the whole time, or is that something you've switched to recently just because they were available?
It did come down to going back a couple of years ago. It was really hard to get bullets then too, and I basically was running out of the 105 hybrids. And there was plenty of 108s there, and I used them before years ago, and I sort of went, they work pretty well, but I just sort of went to the hybrids. Mm-hmm. So I thought I wouldn't mind giving them a go again. So I grabbed a whole heap, and I just sort of started using them again. I actually went to 107 Sierras for a little bit too to try those because they come out from Cleavers and all that. They had a big special on a couple of years ago, and so I ended up buying a heap of those too. But this barrel here, I tried the 105s, the 107s, and the 108s when I was running the barreling, and the 108s just had the advantage over the 105s and the 107s. So I ended up sticking to it, and hasn't done me wrong yet, so I'll keep using them.
Have you done the A-tip thing yet, or you don't want to tempt yourself because of the cost on them?
Pretty much the cost on those. They scare me.
Yeah, I know you don't want them to shoot well because then you're like, oh man, I'd have to keep buying them. Yeah,
pretty much. I've, like everyone else, when things come up, I've pretty much got a good stock now of bullets for the next few years. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I'll get a new barrel. I'll try a different couple in there while I'm running the barreling, and you'll see one that just sticks out better than the others.
Yeah.
So you end up going with that one.
It's cool to see, like, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me because I'm sort of newer to the sport. I've sort of this is my first year of doing PRS, and I've sort of only been reloading for under 12 months now. But I've been around, guns my whole life and reloading my whole life. Whether it was my dad doing it or family friends or whatever. But how much marketing hype is involved, and how much like talking to someone like yourself, or that old F-class guru, or someone at a club that knows a lot, you can kind of find out things that the general media won't tell you, or not that they won't tell you, but marketing will push a certain product. And I've been fallen into, I thought I was going to go to I'm going to go to 6BR potentially at the end of the year. And I just thought, oh, well, all the other PRS guys are running a 105 hybrid, a 109 hybrid, or the 110A tips. And I just thought that that's sort of like your only option, because that's sort of the way it's marketed to you. But then you realise there's a lot of other options out there that maybe they're not getting talked about as much or advertised as well, but are going to be totally viable options and perhaps shoot better in your gun anyway.
Oh, for sure. A lot of it is a bit of a market hype, and some blokes, like, I'm not saying that I know everything, and I'm not the best at everything anyway, but I've had a bit of luck along the way, and you sort of pick up on what some people use. You do a lot of reading, especially on forums, like the Accurate Shooter forum. They have a lot of useful information on there. Some blokes there. I tried to keep away from the Facebook stuff, because you get every Tom, Dick, and Harry on there, and you might have one bloke who's got all the knowledge in the world, but a handful of blokes will jump on and just bag him out, and it's like, well, he's actually got more experience than what you guys do, and
yeah.
But yeah, there's certain ones out there that I'll listen to. I try not to get in the hype of things. Otherwise, if I did that, I would have bought a 6.5 Creedmoor, I suppose.
Yeah. Hey, mate, don't knock the 6.5 Creed, right? Yeah.
But I knew the 108s were good after using them years and years ago. But yeah, like you said, not many people use them. Like the 109s, I still haven't used those yet. I wouldn't mind trying some of those, but I've got enough 105s and 108s and 107 Sierras here to last me a while. So I'm sort of on the fence whether to use them or not. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. And do you know at the moment what you said you're running quite a long freebore? Is that something that you discuss with your gunsmith and sort of sit down and go, what's going to work for the bullet I want to run, or what I'm trying to do with the case here, or the powder you're trying to use? Do you leave that up to him, or is that something that you're involved in that conversation with him?
When I first started and I went to the 6BRX, I used my gunsmith, Dave Kerr, here in Perth. A lot of bench press shooters will probably know the name. He's a Hall of Fame shooter in there. But I just used his one first because I wanted to try 6BRX after trying 6BR. But after using that, I sort of, over the years, I learnt a bit more, and I thought, I see what's happening there. And I went back to him for the last couple of barrels, and we reamed the throat out a bit longer and tried to make a few things. And then just recently, I actually bought my own, like last year, I actually bought my own reamer. Got all the specs that I wanted, just through trial and error over those years. And ordered my own reamer from the US and got that sent over. So now I've got whenever I need one done, I can just give my reamer to the gunsmith and away he goes.
And then you can keep running that same brass, and everything's just running as was the last barrel, really.
Pretty much. Running my own brass, that's another thing. Between barrels, I usually use 100 cases, and I only use those for that one barrel, and then I will chuck them out after that one barrel.
Right, and so then you start with a fresh lot of, I guess you're fire forming anyway, aren't you? So
yeah, that's right. So I used to fire form too, but then I had an incident where one of the primers blew, and it actually broke my dual trigger. So I actually went back to hydro forming, which is another way of doing it. And I did some testing. Like fire forming's great. I had no traumas at all with it, except for the blew a primer and buggered my trigger. Now, I couldn't get the part for my trigger, and I needed a trigger ASAP, so it cost me another $400 for a new trigger.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I went back to hydro forming, which I don't know if the guys know, but you actually fill a case up with water, put it in a special dye, and you give it a hit with a hammer, like a plunger on top, and it actually pushes the shoulder forward into your dye. that you're using. You then full length your die, so it pushes that shoulder back, and then you can actually load that in your in my 6BRX. Now, what I found with testing on that, I actually had a known load a few years ago, which was shooting great. I hydroformed another 50 cases. I used that known load and shot it in a match, and it shot perfect. So even though I still had to fire it to round those shoulders out and square the shoulders up and stuff like that, it still shot excellent. So I actually do a quick, when I get a new barrel, and I've got those 100 cases, while I'm running that barrel in, I'll actually do a quick load test while I'm actually doing that. Sort of kills two birds in one stone to see whereabouts it likes it. Obviously, after about 100 to 150 rounds, that barrel would have finished speeding up, so I may need to tweak it a little bit after that. But, once that's done, sort of kills two birds in one stone. You're not wasting barrel off.
Yeah. Man, that's so interesting. And the hydroforming thing's something you're able to do yourself. You're not getting them sent off somewhere to have them hydroformed. You're doing that all yourself at home? Yeah,
all myself at home. I bought a Widden hydroforming kit years ago. I've done probably about 4 barrels on it now, so I've probably done a good 500-600 cases over that time. When I first started, obviously I used to hydroform about 200 cases, and over the time I realised, well, I don't need 200 cases, I only need 100. The most I'll shoot at a big match, because you got light gun and heavy gun, you'll shoot 40 rounds on your target for the actual comp, and then that leaves you another 10 rounds for the, say, warmer target or something like that. So I went, well, there's no point making extra if I don't need it. And because after the 20 reloads, there's 2,000 rounds. I'll ditch those cases and start on new ones.
What are you doing with your brass when you're done? Could I be like, hey mate, I want to shoot BRX. Can I buy it off you?
Yeah, that's no dramas. It still go well. So I'm actually trialling something at the moment. I'm what you'd probably call a lazy reloader.
Yeah. I like this. We did talk about this briefly. Yeah. I'm keen to hear the lazy side of your reload.
I try to do as least as possible with my gear. Like, I used to anneal every 3 to 4 firings, like sort of everybody does, because that's what you thought needed to be done. Then I read up on a bloke over in the US who set a record in the 600-yard bench rest stuff, basically. Over so many rounds, he had an aggregate that was less than 2 inches over that time. And when I was reading his story, it actually was very similar to what I do. So he doesn't clean his brass. I used to clean my brass. I used to even get the stainless steel tumbler out and do it. But then I found when I was doing stainless steel wet tumbling, it cleans your cases way too much, especially your neck. It takes all the carbon out of the neck. So when you go to seat a bullet, I was getting inconsistent seating pressures on my gauge. And that would then translate downrange at my target. I was getting, the accuracy just wasn't there. I went back to stop cleaning. So basically when I shoot a bit of brass now, once I want to full length size it, I'll wipe it the outside down with a rag, put some lube on it. I'll full length size it, take it out, wipe the lube off. I'll manually clean the primer pocket. And I've got an old brush, old cleaning brush, and I'll just in and out of the neck once like that, and that's it. These cases that I shot that target with, I haven't annealed these for 11 reloads now. Now 6BRX, 6BR, Dasher, the cases don't really move a hell of a lot compared to some of your bigger calibers. I'm only bumping the shoulders back about 2 or 3 thou, and I'm only running 2 thou neck tension on it, so I'm not overworking the brass at all. And yeah, it seems to be going great still. Like I said, I'm just trialing this one because I'm a trier. And I saw this other bloke didn't anneal his brass, and so I went, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And so far it's been going great. I haven't had any skid necks. haven't had anything. So yeah.
And I guess for like what you're doing, you're like you said, you're shooting those rounds, only those 40 or whatever, or that 100 out, and then you keep that same lot. I guess I think the annealing thing probably comes in. We're shooting with the PRS stuff, such bigger round counts. You're doing 200 rounds in a national weekend. So it makes it a little bit harder, like, to lot your brass up, because you've kind of got some that's once fired, some that's maybe 3 or 4 times fired. And so I think the whole annealing thing plays a part there, where you're kind of maybe getting all that neck tension and everything set back to you can throw all of the lots in together. Have you noticed a difference with your seeding force from a piece that's once fired through to a piece that's 10 times fired, whether if you seed a projectile in those two cases next to each other, is there a different seeding force for those two?
Yeah, over the time, because when I first started this batch, I was running 1 thou neck tension. And then after a while, obviously you can sort of see it on your force gauge. It was getting less and less tension, I suppose, the spring back in the brass and all that sort of stuff. So when I redid my powder on this barrel, because I'd shot about 1,000 rounds down it when I ran out of the other powder, I actually bumped up the seating, the neck tension. So I went up to 2 thou. And, that's just sort of brought it back a little bit tighter than what it was getting. That's
allowing for that spring back. So you've just dropped the smaller bushing in. Is that how you've done it?
Yep, that's how I've done it.
Yep.
So,
do you then set final neck tension with a mandrel, or don't worry about it?
No, I don't row, because I actually turn my necks.
Okay.
I run a 270 neck in my chamber. So I've actually got a turn lapel brass, because was it 272 was a no-turn neck. So I'm running a loaded round of 267. So I've got like 3 thou total clearance between that and my neck. So yeah, I turn my necks, so I don't run a mandrel. If I wasn't turning necks, I would run a mandrel down it. So to get my final neck tension. Yeah.
You would know how far is that bullet jumping at the moment? What do you jumped? Are you jammed?
This is actually the first barrel that loves a jam. Normally most of mine, when I was using the 105 hybrids, 8 thou to 12 thou jump. One barrel was 8 thou and another barrel was 12 thou jump. When I was running the 107 Sierras, that liked 20 thou jump. This barrel here, when I was using the other powder and stuff, I was running a 12 thou jam. When I redid my testing, I actually went a little bit further, and I'm actually running a 24 thou jam at the moment. So, hopefully I don't need to
pull a case out. Yeah.
So that's one little thing that you've got to do, but it's, like I said, it was just shooting its lights out at that. So I just went, no, I'm going to keep it there and I'm going to give it a run.
Yeah. So, and what was your load? Like, is this the first time you've had an EC tuner on this barrel, or have you been running the barrel tuner thing for a little while?
No, this is the second barrel I've been running on the EC tuner. I gave it a go last barrel and I had pretty good success with it. It doesn't make your gun shoot smaller, but it sort of makes the node wider.
Yeah.
If you're shooting factory ammo, yes, you can tune that to shoot that factory ammo as best it can. So when I'm loading this one, I will screw it all the way down till it stops. I'll do my powder and then seeding, and then I'll just fine-tune the powder after I've got my seeding again. Once I've done that, I'll then start turning my tuner. So I'll set it up at about 100 metres. I'll shoot 3 rounds down range I'll sort of do a line straight across so I can see what it's doing. And I'll shoot 3 rounds down. I'll then turn it from 0 to, say, number 2. I'll shoot another 3, turn it to 4, another 3, turn it to 6, and then I'll go like that. Now, basically what I'm looking for is 2 positions, say position 2 and 4, that are very, very small, and they're both hitting in the same line. Mm-hmm. So once I've found that, I'll set it to position, say, 3, and I'll leave the gun at that.
Yep.
So it just sort of sits right in the middle of it. So if the temperature or the loading's just slightly out, or the seating depth and the lands are worn a little bit, it'll keep it in that little sweet spot a bit longer. Yep. If I do get down to a range and I'm getting wild vert, I might twist it, 1 notch either way to see if I can reduce that vert. But I don't go mad on them because, the smaller you move them, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talked about that a lot with BJ, the owner of Strike Without Warning, with his TMB. We talked about how it does increase that node, makes it a little bit wider because you're slowing the end of the barrel down because you've got a little bit of weight out there. And I've even noticed that with, I haven't done any any strict research to back it up, but I feel like the best groups I've shot at 100 with my gun have always been when I've had my magneto speed strapped to my barrel.
See, if that's the case, that's where I come down where your load's not tuned properly.
Yeah.
That's, if you're strapping something on and it becomes better, well, you've just added a bit of weight onto that barrel. It's changed the harmonics of the barrel. So that's why we do our load testing, just try and find that perfect spot on the harmonics of the barrel where it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hit the same hole further down range. So if you strap something on and it gets better, well, then that's, to me,
needs retuning.
Needs a little bit more tweaking on the tuner.
Yep. I would not disagree with you one bit there, mate. There is plenty for me to learn in this. It's done what it needs to do for, hitting steel out to 500 and further just playing around. But I mean, for your game, you would not have settled for sort of, what I've settled for, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So when I'm doing load testing, like this barrel here, when I finished my load testing, I was shooting groups. When I was playing with my tuner at 100, I was down under, 0.02 of an inch. I've got 3 groups here, which are like 0.187, 0.195, and then 0.115.
Wow.
So, if I was using a barrel, like say a hunting barrel, which to me that's what I class the PRS barrels in.
Yep.
If you can get that under half an inch at 100, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Like mine, this barrel here, it shoots that well. Now, if that opened up to, say, 0.4 of an inch at 100, that barrel to me is toast. That's now going to become a hunting barrel or something like that.
Yeah.
It's lost its edge for bench rest because we're trying to shoot such small groups, over those distances. Once you start opening up, you're just not competitive as such.
And how far will you hunt to try and get a barrel to come back? So how far, like your current load, you're saying you jammed, what you said, 24th hour.
Yep.
Say it starts opening up, you've played with the barrel tuner and it's still not back to where you want it. How far are you willing to go as far as let's do another jump test and test it all the way out to 100th hour jump and just start to see if there's another node somewhere else? How far do you go to save that barrel, or is it pretty much rip it off when you see that things have changed?
So normally with seeding, once I find that seeding, I'll actually chase the lands out as the barrel wears. So when it's new, it'll move fairly quickly when it's brand new because you're getting all those machine marks down.
Yeah.
But once you've done about sort of, a couple of hundred, won't really move much until sort of around that 800-900 rounds down the barrel. Now this is all dependent on how big a cannon you're using and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So once I find it, I'll actually chase the lands out. Yes, there are, like Eric Cortina, don't chase the lands, they jam their bullet, they got to learn a special way. Now, I want to try that way,
mm-hmm.
but this is working on this barrel for me, so I'm keep using it until I run this barrel out, and then I might try his way. But I've had instances where, like the barrel before this one, actually 2 barrels before, where I shot the other national record, at about 1,000 rounds, it was about 1,100 rounds, 1,200, it actually went off. It just wasn't shooting as small as it was. Like, I went from 1 to 2 inch groups at 500 out to sort of 2 to 3, an occasional 4, in good conditions. When it's windy, sometimes you just miss a call and you can have that one stray bullet go out. But I then I got a lab radar about that time. And I put it down there, and I actually lost 70 feet per second from my original load that I did when I first got it. So for shits and giggles, I thought, well, I'm going to try something. And I actually bumped up the powder in it. So I went up in 0.02 grains or 0.2 grains and just got it up there. And then when it got back up to around that 2990 feet per second, which was my original load, it just shrunk back down again.
Yeah.
And it sort of surprised me in a way because I hadn't really heard anything about it or anything like that. Anyway, I did that. I kept my seeding depth as it was, as I followed the lands out as they wore. And, it was at about 1,600 rounds on the barrel. I shot that 60.02 in 0.847 of an inch. which sort of went, wow, it still does work.
Yeah.
And so now at about 1,000 rounds on my BRX, I will actually retune my gun anyway. I'll put the lab radar down, and I'll just add a little bit more powder, and I'll just see where it likes it. The only reason I did seeding again, this one, is because I changed the whole batch of powder.
Yeah.
Normally I ran out of my 4 kilo lot that had gone through me, I think, a couple of barrels. So, yeah, it was time to redo it, and I thought, oh, shits and giggles, I might just go jam it a bit more and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't impressed where it was in the original powder, because it was running, about 12 thou jam, and it just wasn't as good. So I went a little bit further, and it just shrunk right down. So
a lot of that sounds like it's coming down to instinct too. Like you've been shooting for so long and you've sort of so involved in this sport that you just get a feeling when you go, no, I know this gun's got more in it. Yeah,
and I put that down to I'm not chopping and changing calibers like I used to do. When I first started, I started with the 243. I then went 6BR. I then jumped to the BRX. I then went and tried a 6BRA because everyone was going on about those. I went 2 barrels in 6BRA, and I just didn't like it as much as the BRX. So I actually went back to it, and I just remember reading off a bloke. He stays with one caliber, and that way you get to learn that caliber inside and out. When you're changing everything all the time, you sort of every time you change a caliber, you got to learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not all the same as such. So yeah, it just come down to what I did over time, I suppose.
Yeah. So what about reloading gear? I'm keen to hear what press you run or presses you run, and how you throw powder.
Righto. Well, when I eventually started out was the old Lee press and the old Hornady digital scales, which I soon learned pretty quickly that they're right for hunting, but that's about it. So I sort of upscaled over the years fairly quickly for presses. So I went to a Forester Coax press about, it would be about 7-8 years ago when I first started, after I realised that what I'm using basically wasn't up to scratch. So I've been using this press now for probably about 8 years or something now. And it's still good, so the old Forester Coax.
Yep.
Now, I did upgrade back in the day to a Chargemaster 1500, but then I sort of was looking at a few things, and things just weren't quite right sometimes. So just, even though I was saying it was giving me 30 grains, I'm going, I don't think it is. So I actually bought a set of RCBS 505 beam scales. So I'd trickle up on the Chargemaster or dispense on that, and then I'd put it on the beam scale, and then I'd just trickle up to what I got. So after doing that for a little while, which worked a lot better than just using the Chargemaster, I actually splashed out and went and bought the K&N sort of FX 120.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good
man.
Yeah, and the auto trickler. So I bought those, and I then went and checked my Chargemaster 1500, and I found out that I was getting a swing of about 0.7 of a grain plus and minus, so about 1.4 grains difference, even though the screen was saying it was reading 30.00. So, yeah. So
that's an issue with this, the scale the scale's not basically able to measure down enough to be able to get the precision that you're looking for, isn't it? Like the scale in the Chargemaster.
Yeah, it was just sort of in and out, and even though it was saying it was reading what it was, and no matter how many times you calibrated it and did everything, it would just sort of like drift a bit in a way, but it would still read what it was. So yeah, that was a big eye opener. So then I just used the like a little powder scoop, and I'd put in, it was a half a teaspoon scoop. I'd put that into the pan and and then let the trickler do it up. Now, just recently, I actually finally bit the bullet because I'm getting too lazy again, and I actually bought the auto thrower that goes on top of it. So now I've got the full setup there, which saves a hell of a lot of time.
Mate, I set my auto trickler up on my A&D scales 2 nights ago. I've been waiting for it to come out of Canada and finally got it, and oh man, I'm in love. I now want to throw powder. Like, I'm now excited. I'm like, I can't. It's so fun watching it just hit the same number every time. You're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, you at the most you're sort of 1 kernel out of powder, which I don't care. It's going in.
Yeah, exactly.
Kernel, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But yeah, it's a great machine. I love using it. But then I also use a K&N arbor press.
Yep.
And I use the Wilson
inline seeding dies.
Inline dies, inline seeding dies. So for my bushing dies, I use full length bushing dies. I actually got a couple of them. I was using my Widden full length bushing die. I've been using that for years and years. But recently I just bought the Wilson full length bushing die.
Yeah.
So I've actually been giving that a go, and that's the first test of doing it is when I shot that target. So,
so it's obviously running well.
It's coincidence or what, I don't know, but it's I only bumped my shoulders back about 2 or 3 thou. I was doing a little bit less. I was doing sort of 1 to 2, but I actually just recently when I got the Wilson one, I thought no, I'm going to give it a little bit more. So I went 2 to 3, and haven't noticed any difference at all.
Yeah,
so.
Why not? You're buying yourself some sort of reliability there as far as, efficiency of how it feeds and stuff. So if it's still going to shoot small, why not have the bigger bump?
Yeah, so it's still not overworking the brass. Bumping them back to semi-spec and all that sort of stuff, or say over 4 thou, well then you start to work the brass a bit more. But we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah. Are you running with the bushings? Are you concerned about running one of those tight, like tin bushings, or just the normal steel ones, or are you got a preference either way?
I actually get my bushings off my gunsmith. He actually gets his made over east and sent over. They're like a carbide thing or something.
Yep.
I can't. Yeah, he just gets them made from a blokey that he uses. So, but I have used the Reading ones. Both the orange coloured looking ones and the other ones.
Yeah.
I've used both of those, and I haven't had any dramas with those either. So, but yeah, I only used the other ones because I could get them then and there off the gunsmith, and I just haven't used anything else.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome, man. So besides the BRX and the fly shooting stuff, are you reloading for any hunting? Do you do any hunting as well, or any other disciplines?
Yeah. Being a cocky son from sort of out in Narrogin, no man, we used to have a farm and that out there. My sister ended up marrying the neighbour down the road, so I still head back there and go out shooting. So I take my 243 out there. Mm-hmm. So my little Weatherby Vanguard that I converted to 6BR, I actually converted back to 243. I've left pretty much everything on it, so it's running a XLR Industry chassis with their 5-round AI mag coming out of it. But I've got one of my old barrels, so I've cut it back down to 26 inches. It's a heavy varmint Krieger 1 8 twist barrel. So it punches out my little 87 grain VMAXs. I'm shooting, 0.3 inch groups at 100 with it. So I thought that'll do. I'm not going to get too much into it.
Yeah,
when I was doing load testing, I thought, that'll do. Using 2208 on it, because that's what I had, because I was running that in my BR at the time. So I'm still running that in there, but I've got plenty of 2209 now, so I'm thinking about changing back to that. But the 228's working fine too. I'm not complaining. So.
Yeah. Are you seeing big variances in lot to lot? I haven't done huge, I've changed lots maybe twice on this barrel, and sort of since I've been reloading 2 or 3 times, and have seen a little bit of a difference. What difference are you seeing batch to batch with the powder? Yeah,
I get little differences. They're not huge. Like I was told with this new powder that I've got, the 2209, because I was at the BMI stuff or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I heard off a few of the F-class guys that it was what do you call it? It was a lot faster than the old stuff. But when I went and tested it, I didn't see that at all. I actually set everything up because I heard it was faster. So I reduced all my powder loads and started from there. But then when I got up to, probably about half a grain off what I was normally running, I went, well, this is running exactly the same speed. It's probably maybe 10, 15 feet per second difference. Mm-hmm. So I just went, righto, I'll just bump it back up. And so this powder here, there's probably about 0.2 of a grain difference in speed that I saw. My 2208, I've still got plenty of the old stuff on that. So, the BTI, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like 2208, I've still got plenty of the old stuff. 2209, yeah, I'm running that now. So, like I said, a 0.2 of a grain maybe difference in speed.
Yeah, so it's never a huge swing.
No, wasn't a huge swing. So, but I don't know if that's just because I'm using, I don't use a lot of powder compared to most guys with their big cases.
Yeah.
So, I'm running 35.1 grains. So, whereas most guys with the bigger calibers, you're using double that sometimes.
Well, that's what's been attracting me to wanting to go the BR based cartridge, and in some capacity, whether it's BR or BRA or Dasher or whatever, is from everything I've read about, it's the consistency is as far as temperature changes or lot to lot consistency changes in powder and all that, where you don't see the differences as much. And I know with the 6.5 Creedmoor, it's pretty consistent, pretty reliable, but you do have to keep on it. Like I'll do up a batch, they'll do up a load, and then, shoot a match, and then maybe it's a couple of weeks before I shoot again, and then shoot some more at a club match, and then have to load a few more rounds to kind of make, do with, to make enough numbers to be able to shoot. And suddenly you're sort of going, well, why is this batch that I've done now slightly different to the other batch? You sort of have to really keep on, keep an eye on things moving around. And I think the BR-based stuff that what's drawing me to that is that ability to kind of find a load and then just run it, and it's not gonna it's gonna run a lot more consistent across the season as far as the year goes.
Yeah, well, that's it. The BR, they're such an efficient case. You're putting bugger all powder in there, using 105 grains, projectiles, and they're just consistent. They just work. For bench rest type stuff, like a 6BR, you'll get 3,000 rounds out of a barrel. For the improved versions, so your BRAs, your BRXs and Dashers, you'll get about 2,000 rounds out of that. Now, for PRS, you can pretty much double that, for usable accuracy type stuff.
Yeah.
As long as every now and then you might just check it and tweak it a little bit, after 1,000 rounds or something like that. I always believe in adjusting your seating depth all the time and following the lands out, which there's different ways of measuring that, and everyone's got their own way. But as long as you do it consistently every time, you're laughing. But these are things you learn over time. It's just sort of what you do.
It's about having that process that works for you, and then sticking to it. It sounds like although we have just spoken about how consistent the BR-based cartridges are, it sounds like for the game you're playing, it's part of the game to have to be readjusting and tinkering and always just keeping an eye on it, because you're running it. It's kind of like F1 racing versus just standard V8 racing, or a bit of speedway or whatever. The level of tinkering that they have to run to keep those cars at that level, because they're the tolerances are so small, is obviously going to be a lot more. And it sounds like, from what I've been shooting, the PRS and the hunting stuff, to what you're doing, you guys are another step again on just how much you're retuning and to the level you test before you're willing to take it to a comp.
Yeah, and I sort of believe that in a way too. Like, even with the F-Class, they shoot for an accuracy of an X-ring at whatever distance. Whereas bench rest guys are basically trying to shoot as small as they possibly can. And it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things. I translate that over to my hunting stuff now. So even, I won't get as anal with my hunting stuff, so for my 243, and that, but those processes that you use, you transfer them over to it. So, even my load development and all that, I really put a fair bit into it with my hunting stuff still. But I might not go to the 10th degree on it to make sure it's shooting as small as it possibly can. So, I sat these ones, my last lot of load testing I did my 243. I always do my testing. I start at 10th hour jump and find my powder. I found my powder. And it was, like I said, it was 0.3 of an inch at 100. So I didn't bother doing seating. It was just, well, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was my target stuff, well, then, yeah, I would then proceed to try and get that even smaller.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just one of those things.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, like, I think you're probably the first bench rest guy that I've spoken to on the podcast, but I'm excited to see and learn more from bench rest shooters and F-class shooters and that as, you know, as my journey develops, because like you are saying, it ups the base level. Like if you're shooting PRS or you're hunting or whatever, yeah, you don't need that level of accuracy, but it would help, you know what I mean? Like, and it would be nice if you knew how to get it. So if you up that base level of understanding and knowledge around, you know, sort of strive for that, and then, you know, you kind of elevate your game a little bit. Maybe I'm not going to get there. I might not be at that point where I'm shooting those one-hole groups with my PRS rifle. But if that's what I'm striving for, and I'm learning from people like you and other people that have, you know, gone to that level, it's only gonna help everyone else underneath. You know, like it filters out.
Yeah. You know, everybody has got their own thing. Like, I listen to some of the PRS guys too that do it. You can pick up information off so many people, like your F-class shooters, your bench rest, your PRS, even your small ball stuff, so like your rimfire guys. You can pick up so much information off them, how to shoot your gun, what to do, what not to do, you know, your reloading stuff, how to handle your gun. There's just a lot of blokes with a lot of information out there that, you know, they've got some really good stuff. You just got to filter out the crap in between, from some of the other people. You know what I mean? And I'm the first one. I'm not the be all and best all. Yes, I've had a bit of what I call it good luck, but I put the hours in to try and get there. You know, I have days where I'll go down to the range, and instead of shooting, you know, under 2-inch, 3-inch groups all day, I'll be shooting 4 or 5, just because I, you know, haven't read that wind properly. That wind's picked up just on that one bullet, and it's made your little 1-inch group turn into a 4-inch group. It does happen. And the thing is, don't overcomplicate things. A lot of blokes, I did it once upon a time. I would sit there and I'd do load testing in 0.1 of a grain increments. And in the end, I ended up doing my head in. Because it was too much information. And then, you know, you get guys that go out and they go, oh, I'll do a 10-shot load development, which they shoot it over a chronograph. And it's like, well, hang on, what's not to say that one of those rounds has got, say, a little bit more or a little bit less seating pressure, which will give you a different speed at the end. Or the powder's just quite not right because of the equipment that they're using. Well, that's just either put you out of a node, which mostly, or you've lucked it and actually picked a node. So, yeah, I try to keep it as simple as I can. But when I do keep it simple, I try to keep it accurate as such. So,
yeah. So when you do that load development process and you go for your finding your velocity, are you trying to find you're finding your velocity and also matching that up with something that's shooting consistent groups, or are you just looking at a consistent ES velocity number and then tuning seating depth?
No, I'm actually I do speed and what it does on paper. You know, necessarily your smallest ESs and SDs doesn't necessarily mean it's the best group on paper. So when I do mine, I've done the overall charge weight stuff and I do ladder tests. Either way has worked fine for me. An overall charge weight, I'll do it like 300 metres. If I do a ladder, I'll do that at sort of 400 metres, 500. But I try and make sure that conditions are good. If I go down there and there's mirage or there's a little bit too much wind, I'll just pack up and go home, because I've done it before where I've come all this way, I've got to shoot it. And you shoot it and it just does your head in because, you know, you're getting all this wrong information because, you know, the wind's gusty and the mirage is there and you're just dancing around in your scope. And that's not going to do anything. So basically when I do my testing, I will actually look for what it does on paper and I'll back that up with the actual figures of the lab radar on the side. That way you've got 2 bits of information there. I'll also shoot over flags, so if anything changes, you can actually see it. And that's whether I'm doing seating depth test or powder. But yeah, and you just sort of look for those groups. I'm preferring to go towards the latter these days.
Mhm.
So I'll shoot 3 rounds of each charge at the same aim point at, say, 400 metres. And I'll record those, whether it's a video camera down the end so you can see what it's doing, or I'll colour the tips of the bullets in the front and you shoot them over a bit of white paper.
Yep.
And then you can see what colours the actual, when the bullet goes through the paper, it rubs off.
Oh, dude, that's genius. I love that. That's so cool.
So, yeah, it's I'll actually do like a white piece of paper underneath, and then I'll put another target over the top, because sometimes the paper underneath actually gets more of the colour rubbed off on it than what the top one does.
Yep.
But it just sort of backs it up if, you know, you're sort of umming and ahhing. And then I'll just look for, say, aim at that same aim point, and I'll shoot all those 3 rounds down at that one. I'll go to the next powder charge, shoot all those 3 down, the next one, and then you'll see on paper where things like to group. So I'm looking for, basically, I don't care about the how horizontal it is, because that's seating depth. You can pull that in. I'm looking for the 2 lots of powder that's got the least amount of vert at that distance.
Yeah.
And that's where my node is. I'll then transfer across all the lab radar results for the speeds, and you can generally pick out 2 or 3 nodes where things are, and then you back it up with what the speeds are doing, and then you just pick which one you want to try from then. You can pick 2 of them. You then go out and do, say, 10 rounds of each, and just to see what it's actually doing. See if one was a fluke and the other one might be good. Sweet, no worries. And then I'll take that load and I'll then start doing seating depth. So I might start at 21 jam. I'll work out to about 4 jam, and then I'll start from 4 jump and work back to 21 jump, and about 4th hour increments.
Yeah, right.
So usually you'll find something in between there.
Yeah.
I haven't found one yet that you need all these big jumps, you know, because going from 10, 20, 30, you'll miss a node in there with what I do.
Yep.
You know, I'm looking for the smallest possible stuff.
Yep.
So smaller stuff means you need small figures to actually keep it in that area.
Yeah, totally.
So it's a little bit more anal, but, you know, for my shooting, I use that smaller one. Maybe, you know, for the bigger stuff, I could go 10, 20, 30 on my rifle for hunting, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's just what it is on
when you're trying to stack bullets in the same hole, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, when I tested this new lot of powder, you know, I had 400 metres there. I got 2 nodes, which one had 0.7 of an inch vert, and the other one had 0.9 of an inch vert. And then when it come down to the figures on it, what do we got? There was 10 feet per second difference between both nodes. The SDs were, you know, around 3.5.
Yep.
Sort of, and that they were both the same, but the slower node just had a little bit less vert. So I loaded 10 rounds of each up and shot it, and you know, the slower node had less vert, so it was simple. I went with that one, and then I just adjusted my setting again just to double check things.
Yeah. So, And how many rounds on average are you putting in, do you think, until you're sort of like, yep, that's my load that I'm going to take to the first match at least before I start playing with it again? Are you looking at, can you?
Yeah, I do a quick one first of all. So I only do, say, because I know roughly that I'm going to be sort of about, I start about 34.6.
Yep.
And I'll work up to about 35.6. I know roughly I'm going to be somewhere in there. And I do those at 0.2 grain increments. So what's that? There's 10 rounds. So there's 3 of each. There's 30 rounds just there.
Yep.
I'll do that while I'm sort of fire forming those cases. And it'll give me a rough idea whereabouts it likes it. So then I'll keep shooting those cases. I'll do a bit of a quick, so I'll pick one of those nodes, whatever, just say it likes it roughly around 35.2. I'll load up that. I'll then do a quick seating depth test. So again, I use about 3 rounds each. I do seating depth at 200 metres. With these guns, doing it at 100, it's all locks, you know, you're shooting all one hole basically, and it's a bit hard to tell what the gun's actually doing. So if you stretch the distance out, it actually spreads the bullets out a little bit further, and you can tell what it likes and what it doesn't like.
Yep.
So But yeah, I'll shoot 3 rounds of each at seating, and yeah, I'll start with a jam. I'll then work off on a jump, and I'll just see if I find something that is jamming and it works great. Well, then I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
There's no need to go to a jump if it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
But like I said, most of my stuff is all like jumps. I've only had this one barrel that likes a jam.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to what the barrel likes.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, that's super interesting. Are you interested in ELR at all? Like, I'm with the consistency and the how much you know about reloading and how to tune a barrel. I'd be very interested to see you get into the ELR, like extreme long range game, and see what you can do with some of those big lathe turn projectiles.
Yeah, that would be really nice to do. That'll be, it's a total different thing, different set of skills. And, I like take my BRX out to F-class sometimes too. And, I don't get to do a lot of it, but when I do it, I do enjoy it.
And that's out to 1,000 metre sort of thing?
Yeah. So, and I take the little 6BRX out there and I have a great old time with it. And depending on the conditions, when the wind comes in, obviously I get blown around a lot more than the bigger calibers. But when you beat those blokes with your smaller caliber, some of them don't like it. That's what I built it for. I built the BRX just for that little bit extra speed. So if I wanted to do the odd F class or something out to 1,000, I had that little bit extra there to buck that wind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, the extreme long range stuff, I would love to do it one day. But like anything, time and money is one of those big factors.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the missus happy sometimes.
I know, right? Happy wife, happy life. Yeah,
that's right.
And you sound like the kind of person that wouldn't just be able to half-ass it. You'd be going all in, and then you'd have to make that decision. It's like, do I drop off the fly shooting thing and just go all out into this ELR game, or try and do both?
Yeah, and that's why I really haven't shot much F class either, because I do enjoy it. It is a different atmosphere, like fly shooting in the bench rest. The guys there are fantastic. No matter which club you go to or whatever, most of them, you ask a question, they'll bend over backwards to give you a hand.
Yeah.
I've learnt so much off the guys over East and stuff like that with the bench rest. When you go over for nationals, you just pick their brains. And the guys are quite willing to do it. You go to some other stuff, some of the F-class stuff, and you get your guys that you think you're pulling their teeth out or something like that, and they just don't want to help you or don't want to give you any advice. And it's like, well, we're all in together. We're all here to have fun. So, but, a lot of banter goes on, which is good. I love that. So I've been getting absolute shit picked out of me for my target because it's turned up on a few places. Yeah. And the guys that I know from over East and on Facebook and that, they're quite willing to give me a dig about it. So
they're going to love it when this podcast comes out, and they're going to be like, we've never heard of this podcast. We don't have anything to do with these PRS guys, but we're going to listen to this podcast and we're going to tease you about it non-stop.
Oh, yeah. The guys are already talking about making mugs up or T-shirts with my face on it and the target, and I'm going, geez, God.
That's awesome. I love it. Dude, I really, really want to get to a fly shoot. I potentially might get out to that state title that you're talking about here in South Australia when it comes up, even just for a look, even if I don't shoot, or even if I just shoot some rimfire and then have a look at the centerfire boys. I really want to do it because it looks fun, and I think you should really get out to a PRS match, mate. Even if you try and borrow someone's PRS gun or something, or just come and have a watch, because like you're saying, the banter and the good community is what I'm experiencing in the PRS stuff as well. And I just think it'd go hand in hand. I'm keen to see what these flyboys are about, and then it'd be cool for you to swap around and see what the PRS thing's about.
Well, that's it. Once this COVID thing sort of settles down a bit and, we can get away from that stuff and get back out to everything, because, our nationals were supposed to have in a couple of weeks. That's been cancelled because of it. I know the South Australians got their fly shoot state titles on I think it's around the 18th.
Yeah.
I think 17th, 18th of July. I haven't heard much about it at the moment because I know a lot of the blokes over East can't go to it. So, it's, like even our WA ones, we haven't got any bloke coming from over East because they, we've got to quarantine for 2 weeks before you get here. So most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wouldn't mind getting over to South Australia, doing a fly shoot, and then, probably chuck the 243 in and come and do a bit of PRS.
Yeah, man. The 243 would be awesome PRS rig. Come have a play with some steel. Shoot inside of all of us.
Well, you can only hope, but that's what I mean. I'm using a 12 by 42 by 56 on my 243. So, Nightforce one there because I've got an old NSX which I'm not going to get rid of. And I use that for spotlighting off the back of the ute. Yeah, it's a bit overkill, but it takes a little bit longer sometimes to find your target, but it's the best scope. So we work all right for the PRS, I reckon.
Yeah, it would. It would. You guys would all be second focal plane, wouldn't you?
Yes, all second.
Yeah.
So, no need for first or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess we're all running the front focal plane stuff because, you have stages where it's a like a no dial stage, and so you have targets at different distances, and you're not allowed to touch your turrets, so you're not allowed to dial, so you have to use your holdovers in your reticle, and if you're second focal plane, I guess you're going to have to be on that max magnification where all those subtensions line up, unless you can do some wizardry math in your brain and figure out what it all is.
Oh, no, that's too hard.
Too hard. I think we'll find someone with a rifle, mate, and we'll just throw it at you. It'll be all set up. We'll say, hey, go shoot this off of that, and you'll be like, what? I have to shoot off of that wobbly platform that's held up by chains and string and straps and things? What?
Oh, yeah, I do that now. I sort of, when I go back home and I'll use someone else's brother-in-law's gun or something like that, and I go to pull the trigger on it, and I'm battling to pull the trigger because, they're running 2-3 pound bloody trigger weight, and I'm used to something that you can sneeze on, and it goes off. It's like, I'm pulling, but it's not going off.
Oh, that's great. I've got some questions for you before I finish up. We'll start to wind it up because I know you've got reloading to get done before the weekend. But I'm going to ask you some personal stuff just about what I'm thinking about doing for my build for next year, and just see what tips you've got. I'm currently just shooting a factory barreled Hauer 6.5 Creedmoor, and it's performing perfectly for what I need to do for PRS stuff. Even in national events and stuff, I don't feel like the gun's what's holding me back yet. It's obviously my skill set still. I was thinking about going to the BR-based cartridges. Don't really want to fire form and do all that. I was thinking about just running a straight BR with a 28-inch barrel to get a bit of speed back. With something like 108s, whether they were Hornadies or Burgers or 105s, you think the BR's enough case to get them to sort of maybe 28.50 around that zone?
Oh, a BR, 30 grains of 2208 and a, say, 105 grain.
Yeah.
On average, you're sitting around that 28.50 feet per second out of a 28-inch barrel. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple of ball terror barrels, so it comes out of it. I was running 30.6 grains of 2208 in a 28-inch barrel, running 105 hybrids, and I was getting 29.30 feet per second out of that one. But then I get another barrel, and I was running 29.8 grains.
Yep.
The same bullet, and I was getting 28.40 feet per second.
Yeah, okay.
So it comes down to the barrel and, what it likes and stuff like that. But on average, a straight 6BR with a 105, about 30 grains, you're looking around 28.50 feet per second.
Yep.
So, that's just general.
Yeah, and it would push something a little bit bigger. If I went like the 108s, it would still...
108s, you won't see much difference in speed between that and the 105.
Okay.
Yeah. There's bugger all limit. You might actually need probably an extra couple grains of powder, but like something I've learned over the time, everything's not about speed. Accuracy trumps speed any day of the week.
Mate, totally agree with you.
I used to sit there and I run these things at 3,000, a little bit over 3,000 feet a second. I did because it was accurate. This barrel here, it likes, now I've done this new lot of powder, it likes the lower node, so I'm quite happy to run it at 29, 40 feet per second, no worries.
Yep.
And if it meant I had to run it slower, so be it.
Yep.
I don't understand guys that make an improved version of a BR and then run it at BR speeds.
Yeah, right. Get that one. Yeah, if you're not going to shoot the speeds, just run a BR, yeah.
Yeah, that's dead right. You put yourself through all this extra hassle of fire forming cases and doing all this extra stuff when you're going to run at BR speed.
Yeah.
It sort of defeats the purpose.
And I think that's that's been the case in recent times about what a lot of people are thinking with the PRS stuff, because we're shooting off of barricades and, you got to spot your shots because you're off a wobbly position and you get recoil, you might not see where your shot lands. People are bringing their speeds down anyway to manage recoil, 2, increase dwell time so the bullet's, actually in the air for longer, so you got longer to pick up trace. So a lot of people, like you're saying, they were making dashes just because that's what everyone was running, but then they bring their speed right down to, 28-20, and you kind of go, well, no, let's just run straight BRs and save all that hassle. And that's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm like, I don't want to run it fast. My 6.5 Creedmoor with 140 ELDMs, I'm only running at 2690 to 2700 anyway. So we're running stuff pretty slow in our game, and so I totally agree with you.
Yeah, because that was one thing. The BR is the most easy and forgiving cartridge to run. It's just so easy to get a load for it. 2208, you're going to be between 29.5 and say 30.5 grains. You're going to be in between there somewhere. More likely around that 30 grains, and it's just easy.
Yeah,
there's nothing to it. The only thing with the BR is loading out of a magazine. You need to get the mag kits.
Mag kits, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, once you've done that, they're fine.
Yeah.
So,
and so as far as action goes, I was really interested when you said you had the Weatherby Vanguard and you did everything to it, because I've been thinking to myself, to save money and time and hassle, I've got the chassis with this Hauer in it and everything running anyway. And the Hauer action, for people who don't know, it's Weatherby Vanguard's the same action.
Yep.
I was just going to rebarrel and turn the Hauer into my 6BR and then maybe run another standard 6.5 Creedmoor factory barreled Hauer alongside it as a training gun. But then all my mates are like, nah, mate, why would you do that? Like, get yourself a nice custom action, save up a bit more and get a custom action. And I'm in two minds about whether it's worth. Yeah. What do you think?
After doing both, like I worked up that Weatherby Vanguard. Yes, I did shoot some really good scores, and I got some good groups out of it. As soon as I learned, that was my training basis. So I'd spent a couple of years on that gun and actually learnt everything from it, as much as I could.
Yeah.
As soon as I went to that custom action and the better barrels and all the rest, yes, I was putting better barrels on the Weatherby, but as soon as I went to that custom action, my scores just jumped up.
Yeah.
So, I was, say, around about, on average, around, say, the 200 score mark for my fly stuff.
Yep.
I had a couple there where I did score 250s and all that sort of stuff. But then, as soon as I got my custom action, pretty much I was always over that 200 score.
Yeah.
And I did get higher scores. I've been shot some now up into the 260s.
And what are you attributing that to? Is that just the consistency in the tolerances of that action?
Pretty much, yeah. Just the whole setup, like going from, say, a chassis type system, which I did have bag riders on it and all sorts of stuff from XLR Industries. So it had all the right stuff on it. It just come down to just all those better components in it, I reckon. Like even your trigger. I put Rifle Basics triggers in, and I, got them as light as I could get them, and had the, I was running Krieger barrels and all the rest of it, the same as what I'm running now. But it just, as well as good as it did, it just, I don't know, just going to that custom one, having the proper stocks, the actions that have basically got the same tolerance out of everything out of them. They're just made for that little bit extra stuff. So,
and I bet your gunsmith's happy. If he's spinning barrels on and off, I'm sure he prefers doing that on the custom action than trying to match something up with something that might not be as to spec.
That's right. You look at your Stolly Pandas that I've got here, almost your Stollies. They've all got the same headspace.
Yeah,
they've all the same. So I can just go to my gunsmith. Here's my reamer. Can you build me a barrel for this? And he can just go, yep, no worries. And if I've got another Stolly action, I could just screw that off and screw it back on and be right back in there. So, it's just what it is. So, but saying that, your factory stuff, you can get that to work great. Like that Weatherby, that did me great. I learnt a lot off it. And if you're just starting, keep it that way and keep the cost down till you get that little bit extra, you want to go a bit further. and you can save up a bit extra money for it, and then go that step further.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy the latest and greatest straight away. You've got to learn first before same thing. You got to crawl before you can walk.
Yeah.
And that's where, even in my game, I've seen a lot of blokes go out, and I say, just use what you've got. Just go straight 6BR. Get used to everything. Reading the wind, loading, load testing, reloading. But then they go, oh, but I'm not winning. So they try and go out there and buy all this more expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Try all these different calibers, and it's like, well, you haven't got down pat the basics yet, and you're trying to jump in and overstep your marks and stuff. So it's sort of crawl before you can walk. You know, if you've got there and you've like, I just need that little bit extra now. I know what I'm doing. We're still all learning no matter what, but once you've done all that, you've done your hard yards, I reckon. Then jump up to something a bit bigger. Spend that bit extra money. Where you want to go. It all depends what you want to get out of shooting. If it's just for fun and all the rest and you're having a good time, just stick with the factory stuff and put better barrels on it and better triggers and, better stocks and all that sort of stuff and go from there.
Yeah. So. No, I like that, man. I like what you said just then about we're all still learning. Like, you've just shot an absolute incredible score. You've sort of holding, a record at the moment, but you're still open to, like you said, you're open to learning. You're open to different ideas that are outside what you're currently doing. And that's what I'm noticing across anyone in any discipline that's good at what they do. The people at the top are open and willing to adapt to things that are changing or try other things. Like you said, you try so many different things. Whereas these people that get stuck in, this is what works for me and that therefore must be the only way of doing it. There's no progression. There's no progression in that attitude.
No, that's it. I've got a couple of mates that they bag me because, they go, oh, you should be doing it this way, you should be doing it that way. And it's like, well, you got your way, I got my way. My way, I'm happy with how it works. But I won't knock his way. I will still try their way and make my own mind up. That's the only way you can sort of do things. Yeah, like I said, I like to try things. I got an EC tuner because no one at our club shoots them, but I thought, no, I might try a tuner just because see how they go. And so far I'm quite happy with it. I've got them on a couple barrels now. And like I said, not a nil in cases, this one I thought, well, give it a go.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to find things out is if you give them a go.
Yeah.
And you can't bag anyone because their way is different to yours. I don't agree with some people, what they say, but that's them. They've either got to learn that, they might be right, but and then I've got to learn that, looks like I was wrong. Or they'll hopefully one day realise that, there is another way to do things. So
that's cool, man. What would you say is one of your biggest lessons you've learned with your reloading game, or one of the hottest tips that you've kind of just something that one day maybe stuck with you where you went, bang, that's awesome. That's how I'm going to do that process from now on. Is there been anything like that? Maybe it was through an accident where something happened and you went, oh, that's a cool part of the process. What for you would be one of the biggest things in that area?
Probably the biggest thing in one of my is cry once.
Yeah.
The amount of money that I've wasted doing other stuff and then having to upgrade it later because I was, no, I'm not going to spend that much money on something like that. And then in the end, you end up buying that. You just lose money all the time. That's probably one of the biggest things, cry once. But other than that, just keep an open mind. Listen to people. Do a bit of reading too. Don't be afraid to jump on the website or pick up a book and, applied ballistics from Brian Lutz and all that sort of stuff. These guys have got a lot of great information. Even Eric Cortina and stuff like that on YouTube and bits and pieces like that.
Yeah.
Some people don't agree with them, but that's fine. You don't have to agree with them either, but they do have some really good information at times.
Yeah, you're deepening your knowledge base. You're deepening your grasp of the concepts of what's happening when when you're trying to make a round, and then that can only help, really.
Oh, that's for sure. So, and like I said, give things a try for yourself. Don't just bag it and not try it. Just go from there. So.
Yeah, awesome, man. Have you got any sponsors or anyone that really helps you out that you'd love to give a shout out to while we're still on the podcast?
Don't really have any sponsors because I just do this for fun. Dave Kerr, a gunsmith down here in Perth and that, he's been brilliant. He's always helped me out and any questions they've got, he's always quite willing to help out, and he's got a wealth of knowledge with all his shooting over the years. But just other than that, just all the guys in the fly shoots and stuff like that over east. Just a great bunch of blokes, great knowledge, and stuff like that. So, but like I said, I wouldn't mind you coming over and doing a bit of PRS with you guys at one stage.
Mate, that'd be awesome. I haven't spent any time in WA. I've travelled a lot around Australia, and WA I haven't done any, so it's on the list as far as a tourist destination goes for a bit of a holiday. So if I do, I'll make sure I throw guns in and come hang out with you guys and shoot some fly. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, come borrow mine if you want to.
Mate, I wouldn't do it justice.
Oh no, that doesn't matter. That's the whole thing. Like I started the same thing. I started with my 243 Weatherby Vanguard. I was lucky to hit the paper. You got about 600 high by 440 wide, something like that. That's a good thing about fly shoot. You don't need to hit the scoring section to actually get a score.
Yeah.
You could put a nice group off on the paper and you still get a score for a group. Yeah. So you get a score for what you hit plus a group size.
Yeah, cool.
When I first started, I was lucky to hit the paper, and that was at 400.
Mm-hmm.
And then just over the years, you pick things up, you learn how to read wind and shoot a bit better and your fundamentals and all the rest of it, and you just got to get better over the years.
Yeah.
So, and the guys give you a hand, so, bunch of good blokes.
That's awesome, man. Hey, dude, we'll wrap the podcast up, but then just stay on the line for a second and I'll have a quick wrap-up chat with you. But thanks so much for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. It's a new aspect of shooting, the fly shooting thing that caught my attention, and seeing what you guys are doing is pretty cool. So I really appreciate you getting on and having a chat about it.
No, thanks yourself to giving the opportunity. I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. So it's something new for me too, but as you can probably tell, I like a bit of a chat. So
yeah. Don't worry, mate. I'm probably going to harass you plenty more times. You'll be like, damn it, I shouldn't have given this bloke my number.
That's all right. I will catch up, no doubt. So
too easy, mate. Sweet. Thank you for listening to the From the Bench podcast presented by Projectile Warehouse. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and also follow all of our social medias for updates and upcoming episodes. We hope you're enjoying the journey of reloading as much as we are, and we'll catch you on the next episode.